Hey there, Bible buddies. I've got another Bible review for you today, and this one is a Cambridge Cameo. Now, this one isn't a vintage edition, but I figure for new Bibles that I review, I figure at some point they are going to be vintage editions, and at some point they're going to be discontinued. So at least there'll be a log out there of the Bibles that I have, to showcase to anybody who would be interested in a Cambridge Bible from like circa 2020. in the great and distant future. Who knows if we'll still be around then? But either way, right? So let's go ahead and start with the box. You can see that this is a very high gloss box. You can probably see like my camera and my fan spinning up there. Cambridge has kind of moved away from this. Thankfully, they use like a more matte finish box, which I can appreciate. I wasn't a super fan of this ultra gloss box. It tends to show like fingerprints and smudges a lot, so it's not kind of like ideal for me. I don't know. It's just not my preferred kind of box. But I'll let you take a look on the outside either way. You can pause it if you want to read any of this fine information about Cambridge Bibles. And there's your ISBN number. I'll show you the back too. You can hear inside there's some little clanking around. So it includes a couple cards there. It's a one-piece box, a clamshell box. And I've got two cards here. I'll hold them up so you guys can read them. Here's one. And the other one. All right, and this is like a warranty card. Funny enough, I'll have to tell you guys a story about Cambridge's warranties one of these days. They are not the easiest to deal with as far as warranties are concerned. I would say keep your receipt, right, for your Cambridge Bibles when you buy them, because they're very particular in what you provide to them. And if you can't provide that information, you're out of luck. So yes, definitely keep your receipt. As far as clamshell boxes go, I don't really like this style. Like, I understand, I guess, the appeal because it's like one box. You're not going to lose the top. You can open it and then just kind of pick up the Bible right out of the way. But like, my fear is always that I'm going to go to close the box, right? And like this edge is going to like poke in as I'm closing and then just scratch the mess out of the gilt. So like, I'm too scared of that. I always like take my time and make sure it's not going to do it when I close the box. But like, that's my concern. I don't know how like reasonable it is to be worried about that, but I prefer two-piece boxes. That being said, so otherwise, not a bad box, very thick, high quality. Go ahead and take a look at the Bible. And this is kind of the standard that Cambridge has moved to. I do prefer older Cambridge editions because they had more like variety and more character to them. Cambridge now really is just like across the board. They kind of use all the same kind of finishes and touches and everything for each Bible. So it's kind of lost that character, so to speak. But either way, we'll take a look. So this is a goatskin, and it does have a very nice pebbly grain. And it's super flimsy, it's super soft. I mean, it's a premium leather, so I mean, it feels great, and it's certainly not what I'm used to, given, vintage Bibles are usually pretty firm and kind of, tough, so to speak. There's a little perimeter line, which is also something I'm not very used to with vintage Bibles. You never see that. One interesting thing to note is, I don't know if you guys can see it there, but there's a little bit of a scar, which I love. I'm a big fan of scars. Like if there's like a vertical crease in the leather, or as long as it's not like a hole or a rip or a tear or something in the leather, but like these sorts of little scars and those sorts of little things, I love seeing that, because that's just where the animal probably brushed up against a piece of barbed wire, got a little mark on a skin, and I just think it's unique. And I always, if I can, I always try and get Bibles with extra kind of character to them. I think it's neat. As far as the spine goes, you have Holy Bible, King James Version, and then you have the Cambridge colophon down there, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of rib indications. And I've compared these before to like pimples. They're rib indications, but it's almost like somebody like pressed down into the leather and then kind of squeezed it like a zit. So it always reminds me of like a zit or something like that. I prefer raised hubs, but this presentation is very elegant and very kind of simple and timeless. So I can't really fault them. It's just a different way of presenting it, right? On the back, we have the continuation of that same great grain, beautiful grain. As far as other accents go, we have yellow and red head and tail bands. We do have 2 single-sided satin ribbons. There's a very nice gold gilt. I mean, I'm not going to fault Cambridge for that. They do an excellent job with their gilt. I don't know if it's real gold anymore. I really doubt it, but it's still very well applied. As far as the liner goes, that's where the disappointment has always been for me, right? So you can see this kind of has like a texture, but it's like a polyethylene or urethane or some poly something. Right, it's just essentially like a piece of plastic. And I'm not a super fan of this. It just makes it feel really cheap. And actually, I've seen a video of somebody who uses I believe it's a Cambridge Clarion fairly regularly. And what ends up happening is this material ends up splitting. So yeah, that's no good. I mean, I guess it depends how often you use it. You might be able to kind of squeeze in with the warranty, assuming you saved your receipt from 5 or 10 years ago. But it's just a shame. There's definitely much better materials to use out there than something that's just going to split over time. I mean, line it with leather. I mean, you're charging a premium for these Bibles anyway. May as well, include a leather liner. That's always been a miss for me with these synthetic liners, and Cambridge seems to be holding fast to them. When I do that review video, you'll see that basically all of these Cambridge Cameos from all throughout the generations all have a synthetic liner, which again is kind of a miss. But you can see the corner work there. It is cut corners, not pleated corners. And then you do have goatskin leather cover, kind of embossed down there at the bottom. You do have a synthetic end sheet here. And that feels pretty nice, actually. Much nicer than this. Although I would imagine this is probably a little more durable. On the back, just the corner work again, if you're interested. Nice and neat enough corner work, I suppose. But let's go ahead and get into the text. So open it up here. Actually, let me untuck the ribbons, and I will be back. You do have a very kind of thick end sheet there, right? And then you have your blank presentation page. I love this. I think this is a very nice way of doing it. It doesn't say presentation. It doesn't say on this date by this person. It just allows you to kind of write in whatever you want. And it is a matte piece of paper, and it's fairly thick, which is good. It means it'll soak up the ink, depending on your writing implement, fairly well. Then you have your title page, the Holy Bible. You have your secondary title page there, the Holy Bible, containing the Old and New Testaments. You can see kind of the printing information down there. It is a Cameo 16MO reference. And that is kind of the standard that Cambridge has been using for the longest time. And this one does have pronunciation marks. Then we have our copyright information. You can see some additional information down here about the Bible, their website, the copyright rules. Sorry, I'm probably going to fall outside of that, Cambridge. Don't sue me. And then you can see here it was typeset in 8-point petite medieval Clarendon, 1159. I'm not sure what the 1159 means, but it is, again, the KJV Cameo reference edition. And then the paper was supplied by that place in France that supplies paper to everybody that buys nice paper. And it was printed and bound by Royal Youngblood in the Netherlands, which is awesome. We have the epistle dedicatory opposite that. And then we have the table of contents. And then the table of signs used in this book, and the first book of Moses called Genesis. And it's really just, man, this is like a beautiful and timeless layout. I'm a personal fan of the Cameo because it is the same footprint, right, as a Pit Minion. It's just thicker than the Pit Minion, probably close to about double the size, maybe a little less than double the size. But that's a pretty nice trade-off because it's still not like a huge package overall, but you do end up with a much nicer font. It's more readable, and it's certainly darker, and you just get a lot of benefit to it. Much easier to read, essentially. But we'll go ahead and take a look at all the features here. I'll hold it up for you. But at the top in the outer corners, you can see we do have the book and chapter numbers, and then on the gutter here, you have a running header up across the top. You do have a double column verse-by-verse text presentation, and they are using Pilcrow markers here to indicate the new paragraphs. We do have center column references, and I'll let you guys take a look at those. There's a double line drop cap at the beginning of each chapter, which I always appreciate. I think it makes it look a little bit nicer instead of like just a number. I prefer the letters. So we'll kind of thumb through it a little bit, but for the most part, this is it's kind of a standard presentation of the Bible that we've seen, especially with vintage editions. This is a vintage edition; it's been around forever, so it kind of pulls from that same kind of vibe that we see very frequently on this channel. Let's go to the poetic section. We're not going to see much, obviously, because it's just a double column verse by verse. And here's Psalms. We'll take a close look at that paper. Now, it does appear to be line matched. Nope, JK, it's not. Just kidding. So you can see here on the number 11, see there's kind of a line kind of right above it. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but kind of right above it, you can see that it's kind of offset a little bit. So it is not line matched, but I will say the paper is nice enough. It's not super thin. It's fairly easy to turn. And the opacity is pretty decent. I mean, given the fact that we're kind of limited with modern papers, we're never going to have anything as good as India paper, or at least for the foreseeable future. So, it doesn't bother me. It's not bad enough to where I would be concerned about the opacity. I know some people get really kind of weirded out by the opacity levels, but I'm not one of those people. As long as it's not like To me, the worst paper was like the early 90s paper. You see some of the Bibles from the early 90s, and it's just, oof. Like, you can read like 4 pages deep through it. It's sad. But no, this is fairly nice paper, which I would expect because it's touted as such, right? So we'll go ahead and get to the end of the prophets here. Into Malachi. I have the one blank sheet there, and then you have the New Testament title page. You can see it's indicated that the words of Christ are in red. It's very nice deep red. And again, the same information down there at the bottom. It's funny. Look, notice that. And I guess maybe they forgot to maybe take this off of the original print. I'm not sure. But it says India. Now, of course, this isn't India paper. India paper was known to essentially cause cancer. The chemicals that were used in its production were carcinogenic. So the production of India paper stopped. But it is funny to see that kind of carryover. I'm assuming, again, it is not India paper. I guess maybe they should have changed that to French or France to make it a little more accurate. But we'll go ahead and get to the red letter section. Oh man, and you can see it here. This red is very deep. It is almost like a brown, which is what I prefer because there's no. I don't prefer brown. Don't get me wrong, but I prefer like a very deep red like this. It almost looks like kind of a, not to get too morbid, but kind of like a dried blood. And it's very easy to read. I'm so used to the kind of hot pinks and the bright pinks of olden days. And we do have some features back here, which is nice for the Cameo. I'm glad that they, they were okay with making it a little bit thicker, obviously, to get the text bigger, and it was nice that they added a few little features back here, too. They were kind of okay with adding that extra thickness, because already it's going to be thicker than a Pit Minion, so there's no sort of kind of hesitation there with keeping the kind of the thickness down, right? So there's the end of the Bible, the end. I love when they put that. Then you have the concordance to the Old and New Testaments. I will zoom in here for you guys so you can take a look and see some of those entries. I don't know about you guys, but I very rarely use the concordance. I, for the most part, I either just sit and read the Bible, or I just grab like a study Bible and just kind of run with it. So I usually don't ever flip back through the concordance. That's just me. So if a Bible has one or doesn't have one, it's kind of a moot point. I'm sure at some point I'll get kind of tired of digging around a study Bible and I'll refer to a concordance. I think it's neat to have kind of all the references to one specific topic in an area. I think that's super cool. I would be hard pressed to look in a Schuyler's concordance, because the text in that is very small. This is very manageable text size. So let's get to the end right quick. This concordance is very large. There's the end of the concordance. And we have the Cambridge Bible maps. So there's a listing of the 15 maps that are present. And then we have the map index. It's a shame they don't call it the Gazetteer. And it is color-coded, which is neat to see. They kind of took that extra step there. I'll flip through the maps. And these are wonderful maps. They're very pretty. I like the colors. They're very reminiscent of kind of what I grew up with. I really wish I remember what my mom's Bible was. As a kid, you always look through your mom's Bible, you grab it, and of course you're going to look at the maps because it's colors and ooh. But I forget the brand, but I remember her maps looking very similar to this. Granted, that Bible was probably from the early 80s. So it is interesting to see that Cambridge kind of retained that same kind of similar look. I'm sure they've made some updates here and there, but it's just nice to see that those kind of colorations preserved like that. I guess why change it, right? If it's a good thing and it works, why change it? So you do have one blank sheet, and then at the end here you have a little sticker with the item number and the ISBN, it looks like. And then you just have your end sheet right there, glued together. Don't ever pull these apart. That's a big no-no. My son almost did that. He sat down at church and he pulled the Bible out of the pew and he looked at it, and I could just tell what was going right through his mind. And he was kind of like that, and he started going like that, and then he went to go on it, and I'm like, no, don't pull it apart. I would have shed a single tear, Yeah, so let me go ahead and get you guys some measurements, and then we'll go from there. So this one comes in at 7 and what is that? 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, 7 3/8 of an inch tall by about 5 1/4 inches wide and about an inch, just under an inch and a half thick. So not too bad. Pretty good personal size, hand size, I guess. I know I said I wasn't going to do this anymore because I can't figure it out. That's just me. That's a personal problem. Should see a doctor about it. But let's look at the text, shall we? The capitals. We will start with the H and he right here. And it's a pretty decent size given the footprint of the Bible. It appears to be about an 8.5 point font. And we will look at the N in transgression. That appears to be a little bit bigger. About a 9 point, but kind of between 8.5 and 9. But closer to 9, right? So about a 9 point font for the lowercase versus Times New Roman. And certainly I always go by the lowercase letters because there are more of them. So I would say that this is a 9 point text size in comparison to Times New Roman. So a very lovely edition. Certainly if you guys love Cambridge Cameos, there's going to be more of them coming. And my end goal is to do one very large sort of comparison between them all, at which point I will be parting with many of my Cambridge Cameos. So if you see a Cambridge Cameo that you want, with the exception of this one, I'm going to hold on to this one for obvious reasons. But if you see a Cambridge Cameo that you want, keep an eye out for a future video indicating when I will be selling them. And you guys might be able to grab one. So, Bible buddies, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down below. Otherwise, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, it would be much appreciated. Until next time, bye.